This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by MusicBed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show.
So our guest today is Kshitij Sheetak, filmmaker, educator.
I run this platform called Shoot Guru. The idea is to, take education to every single person in India and around the world and get them to start creating positive content.
What would you say that most Westerners kind of miss about creating an Indian wedding film?
I think that we have to be very careful about in Indian weddings is relationship. That every relationship is taken care of and they're touched upon somewhere in that wedding film.
Someone on the internet is not necessarily a mentor. You need an actual person.
These kids who have the talent do not have the right guidance because what they're doing is they're learning on YouTube. They're trying to replicate what people are teaching on YouTube, but they don't have the resources to execute what they see on YouTube. If that kid does not get to hold this equipment in his hands, he will never understand what results he can get with it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. My name is Jason, and I'm here with my co-host, Jared. I'm doing the intro today, Jared.
Yeah, kind of reversal today. We have a very special guest on today. We met him over in Tokyo back when we were kind of premiering the new Panasonic S5 II.
So our guest today is Kshitij Sheetak, and he is a filmmaker, educator who runs a thing called Shoot Guru. He's known as the Shoot Guru over there. And it's a really, really fascinating story. And I remember talking to him over in Tokyo, and I was like, I gotta have this guy on. I gotta think of an angle, right? Because he's done weddings, but that's not his primary thing is weddings. But I think there's some commonality, which is like, he's boots on the ground in India. I'm fascinated with Indian weddings. I think the whole entire industry is fascinating. I think there's a lot of them. Like, we don't have insight into the level of talent and what they're doing over there. And I would love to know more about it. So I wanted to have someone who had a little insight there, but also what he's doing with educating young people and getting people's career started. Like, that's our heart too. That's why we have what we have with Wedding Film School is we want people who are like, hey, I think I might want to have my own business. Like, one of the number one ways we think you could do it is, hey, pick up a camera, start shooting, and just get out there. And that's kind of, I think, what Kay's mission is too. And so we wanted to have him on. So how you doing, Kay?
I'm good. How are you guys? Thank you for having me here.
Oh man, it's such a pleasure. What time is it over there?
It's about 7:30 in the evening.
Yeah, 7:30 in the evening. Where it's like almost 10 a.m. over here. But that's always the challenge with overseas people, right?
I know.
So Kay, why don't you tell people who are listening, the wedding filmmakers who are primarily especially most of them are either European or American filmmakers who are they're in the wedding world, they know wedding filmmaking. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do over in India? Because I think it's really amazing.
So first of all, thank you guys for having me here once again. And just to let you guys know to the listeners that so I'm Kshitij, also known as K. I run this platform called Shoot Guru, where the idea is to make basic education in filmmaking and photography affordable or even free for creators who really want to get into this industry. And the idea is to create a community that supports each other in content creation through collaborations, through working on bigger projects together, and just a kind of a cohesive environment where everybody can succeed together. So that's the idea behind what we do, and we host a lot of workshops, online, offline, and the idea is to, take education to every single person in India and around the world and get them to start creating positive content. That's the idea behind it.
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah, I think everyone who knows a little bit about India in general knows that it's probably it's the largest democracy in the world, but also it's the largest emerging economy in the world right now. So probably a pretty exciting time to be in India. that means there's a lot of economic growth. What are kind of the emerging like film markets in India? Is it the commercial world? Is it the wedding world? Do you see growth on that side? Like, where is film kind of going in India right now?
So, see, the market is growing. Of course, the economy is booming. There are ups and downs in different industries. But what I feel in the media industries as such, wedding is something that will always survive. I mean, Indian people love getting married. We are the largest population, and we are growing by the day. We have the best and the most, I would say the pompous of weddings happening, where people love to show what they have, and everybody loves to spend that kind of money. And to capture all of that, they really, really look out for photographers and filmmakers who can do their best in presenting what they have showcased back to them. So, in terms of the media industry, after Bollywood, I would say wedding is the biggest. Then you have commercial, and OTT platforms are really emerging with short format films coming up. People are doing a lot of short films, and the education system changing in our country now, because we have international schools where children are now allowed to pick up whatever they want. Somebody who's learning sciences can pick up photography as a secondary subject. Somebody who's doing arts can do mathematics as a secondary subject. So that versatility is coming in the education system and is allowing children today to follow their dreams. Because I can very well say that because of the boot camps that we're running, I've had have had children who are 15 years old and are doing brilliant short films, brilliant documentary films that I never imagined I could have done in my life when I was at their age. So the markets are changing, it's evolving. Wedding will still be the topmost in my bucket where it really makes money. But then again, it's up to you how you present yourself in this industry, how well you can showcase your own work, and how well you can keep up with the time.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting to me, because like Jay and I were talking about it actually this morning, talking about weddings in America, right? People are getting married like later and later and later. They're having less and less kids over time. Like population's kind of like starting to decline. There's fewer weddings now. Like I see weddings kind of decreasing here in the States, but with people making more, money in general, maybe the emergence of more of like a middle class in India, I can see that being true. Like more Indian weddings happening in India, even growing kind of the luxury market as well. So that's really interesting, man. I was kind of shocked to hear that weddings are the emerging film market over there. But yeah, really cool, man.
Okay, so
sorry, just on that, what Jared just said about the middle class, in India, the basic focus behind weddings is that when somebody gets married in our families, it's something that we are very proud of.
Yeah.
It's the moment of celebration for us. It's a moment of showing off what we can do for our kids. In the process, we have lower middle class also, not even the middle class, lower middle class taking loans and spending it on big ass weddings. I mean, like, yeah. And it's not even funny the amount of money these people spend. I mean, at times I personally feel like, why are you doing it? Save the money, put it in the.
We feel that way too in the States, Kay.
Yeah, but then again, when I look at it as a perspective of a creator who's doing weddings, who's doing now they started doing reels in weddings. They've started doing like aerial shows in weddings, and the whole wedding market is transforming. I mean, like in my sister's wedding, the rings came via a drone, and we had dry ice flowing on the ground, making it look like clouds and whatnot. I mean, like people love it. And that's what I feel, that in India, be it a lower middle class, be it middle class, or even the super luxury segment, the magnitude of the wedding will vary. Of course, the budgets will vary, but still the pomp and the show off I think it'll always be there.
Yeah, and I think like that's a big thing, is like if your culture values, like when you think about India, right? The first thing I think about is color, right? Everything is colorful, right? Everything is out there, and like you watch a Bollywood movie, like Americans are like, these are cheesy, right? Like we watch, but it's like, actually no, that's like it. They're everything is about the spectacle, right? Yeah. Everything, and that bleeds into the weddings, right? Like I mean, you could tell me a little more about this, but when I first started seeing, like sometimes, and I'll be totally frank, I would see some Indian filmmakers and I'd be like, I'd see their film and I'm like, that film is not good. Like, and I would see good ones too, but I would see some people who are not good. And then I would see a BTS shot of like the cameras they were using and the amount of people shooting. And sometimes there would be a scrum of like 30 people with cameras shooting this bride and this groom. And it was like, it really gave me insight into like, man, it's all about the show. It's all about bringing that to like that experience, right? And I think in India, like in the States, I don't know if you've ever shot a wedding in the States. In the States, this is the wedding industry. You as a filmmaker are expected to, and you could get, like, I know people who are getting paid like $20K a wedding, who this is how, the more so, the higher up you go, the more so this is true. You are expected to be seen and not heard. You're expected to, like, you want to show up at that wedding, you should have the smallest camera you can. You should not stick out at all. Like it's funny how that works. Like, it's the total opposite. Am I right there when I'm like seeing like, hey,
very true. And that's one of the reasons why I would why Sony or the Canons of the world came up with their tele lenses that looked beautiful when they were hooked onto a camera, because whenever a candid photographer would walk into a wedding and take his camera out, everybody was looking at him. Okay, now this is a moment, and everybody kind of dress up, and the family who hired that photographer would ask that if you're coming to the wedding, please get the camera with the wide lens. I kid you not, that was a very basic demand that was coming through. The bigger the cameras that you had, the more I would say that you were considered a better filmmaker. Because I remember when I was doing weddings, gimbals were just introduced, and GoPro gimbals were something which was very, very new in the Indian market. People never knew something like that existed. So what I did, we had a drone that we had built up. I took out the gimbal from that drone, hooked onto a cage that I had, and had the GoPro running like a gimbal, because we didn't have the DSLR gimbals at that time. And people went nuts looking at what we were doing. The other teams, so there were two different teams which we were shooting. I was shooting from the bride side, and then there was a team shooting from the groom side. The bride side team was like, what the hell are these guys doing? And we suddenly became like talk of the talk. And we got 3 more weddings from that wedding itself. And every time they were like, what new are you getting in that the next wedding? So in India, it's more about bigger setups, and rightly said that you do see big setups, you do see the latest cameras, you do see the top-notch equipment that can be there, but sometimes, or most of the times, I would say the quality of the films that are coming out are not at par to what they could have been. Yeah. And that why I feel is because the basic definition of cinema is yet not clear with people. People don't understand lighting. People don't understand storytelling. People don't understand emotions as such. What they do is, okay, they look at a film that was a successful film, maybe a few 100,000 views on YouTube. It's a competitor's film. They look at it, they jot down all the shots that person did, and they kind of replicate it. That's what people have been doing. And why I can say this is because I started like that. Yeah. That's how the industry starts here. We copy what success is. We try replicating what things have been successful in the past. And because of that, the creativity does not come out. There is nothing that is an original to any of the films that I did in the past. I can't come back to you and say, listen, Jared, look at this film because this is an original shoot guru wedding film. No, it's not. The concept is not original. The concept has been done to death. The story would have been done to death, and worst of all, the music would have been done to death. And the people who are doing really good work, you can look at it and you can tell, okay, these are people who've understood what the technicalities of film and photography are about. What is composition? What is visual storytelling? What is sound design when it comes to designing a story? And they kind of bring all of that together to tell a story. And that's, I feel, out of 100 for filmmakers, wedding filmmakers in India, only 10 would be doing that greater work.
That's really cool, man. And that kind of transitions a little bit into kind of what you're doing nowadays with Shoot Guru. Kind of explain to our audience, what is Shoot Guru? Dive into kind of like the work that you're doing, kind of what you're bringing, to the people out there, and kind of how you're hoping to grow kind of the industry over there.
So over the last few years, what we felt, because we were outsourcing a lot of business to a lot of creators around India, and we were hiring these creators in tier 2, tier 3 cities where the client could not afford us going personally because they couldn't afford travel or something like that. So the client would ask, okay, please hire somebody local and get this work done. It was a very small, maybe 2 hour shoot or a 3 hour shoot. So we started hiring these kids, and every time we struggled with quality. Every time there was some screw up that happened in frame rates, there was some screw up that happened with the shutter sync. They were not using ND filters and stuff like that, which we learned and we started using over the years. And what I felt is that these kids who have the talent, who have the resources to create content, do not have the right guidance, because what they're doing is they're learning on YouTube. They're trying to replicate what people are teaching on YouTube, but they don't have the resources to execute what they see on YouTube. Like, for example, if today I put out a YouTube video and I have let's say the Lumix S5 II, which I'm using right now for this live session also, as a camera in my hand, and I'm using a cinematic light setup with a hair light popping in the back, and I have a Pro Mist filter attached to it. If that kid does not get to hold this equipment in his hands, he will never understand what results he can get with it. He would only know, okay, some creator on YouTube used a Pro Mist filter with a cinematic light to get that nice soft skin tone with a nice, beautiful, bokeh in the background. But what he will not understand it, where and why to use it, what kind of lenses to use it with, and where not to use it.
Yes.
So that led us to teach these kids hands-on that this is something that you need to learn, because that was missing. So the basic idea of Shoot Guru was to give hands-on experience to all of these people.
Well, and also, like, Jared and I always are banging our heads against the wall, I think, with like internet education culture, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
educating people over the internet is barely education. Like, it's good. You can do it. You can do it, and it's a door, I think, to education. But there's literally no replacement for hands-on, boots on the ground. And I also think there's the concept of mastery is going away, right? It's like, oh, you made a sick video. Okay, well, that's cool that he, in this condition, can make a YouTube video, or that he happened to be in Bali when he shot it or something. But like, this person is not necessarily someone you should be emulating, and you need to know, you got to be with that person and see why they make the choices. And so I think hands-on education, especially like maybe not long term, maybe not a 3-year school or whatever, but like especially over a period of time, not just a day at a little workshop, there's no replacement for it. Have you seen, so you do these workshops, right? Those are like 1 or 2 days. And then you were telling us before that you also do longer term mentorships and at your studio. Yeah. What do you see as the big difference between, because you're doing online education, right? Which is kind of YouTube / Instagram. You're doing these workshops, and then you're also doing these long-term, like, boot camps. What's the difference between all three, and where do you think, like, you see the value in, like, for the student?
So we have always been somebody who's like concentrating on the practical aspect of filmmaking photography more. So when the lockdowns and the pandemic and everything happened, for us it was a huge blow, because now we couldn't practically show people what we wanted to, and we had to transform into an online format. We started an app. For a year I ran online courses, but I shut everything down, because I realized after that 1 year, nobody learned anything. Believe me, nobody learned anything.
Tell me about
all those kids who no, I'm telling you, and this is going to go live. I don't mind it going to live. All the students that I've had online struggled with me on an actual shoot, and I'm looking at their face. Listen, I taught you this. Then I realized, no, I told you about it, but you never learned it. So, that factor of them not holding a camera in their hand, not experiencing lighting, not experiencing different kind of, gear, was the first stop for us. Okay, let's stop online education. And we completely shut it down. The Shoot Guru app is not there anymore. I'm coming on YouTube, but on YouTube and on Instagram, I give more of like new age tips than getting into details of shutter, aperture, ISO, cinematic lighting, and all of that. I just hit upon things that are running now. But what I have learned is with the 1 day workshops, people get to realize what they're missing, because we make them realize, listen, if you are not holding this camera or this setup in your hand on a daily basis, you're not practicing with it for at least 2 months, 3 months, you're not doing anything. And from there, when these kids now decide to join the program, they come to us for a month, they learn on grounds, they go to actual shoots. It's an eye opener for them. People who wanted to get into purely direction become cinematographers. People who wanted to get into cinematography are now production designers. People who did not even think about music and background scores or mixing and mastering are now sound designers, and they're excelling at what they're doing, because when they were working on actual projects and when they were doing the things practically, they realized what they were missing. And with practice and with experience, they realized where their interest really lied and how things were reacting to what they wanted to do. And that is why I feel practical learning, practical education, and practice is something that will change how creators are coming out in this world. And that's one thing I have a fight with all due respect to all the influencers out there who are creating beautiful content. I mean, I see some amazing transitions happening in their reels and whatnot, and but they're very stuck to their own world. Even though they are taking away a lot of my business, because I love traveling, and now tourism boards don't call me anymore because they call an influencer instead. But at the same time, if that influencer can afford a drone, but it's not necessary he knows how to fly it correctly. If that influencer owns a gimbal, it does not necessarily mean they know how to work that gimbal or walk with it correctly. And that is what you can see in their content. Yeah. You would see a drone shot that starts beautifully and then ends up like, whoa, what just happened? Did you crash? I mean, like at 90% of the times, and believe me, I get messages almost every second day from an influencer. Listen, I crashed my drone. Where can I get it repaired?
The amount of people who...
Because you didn't learn.
Yeah. And I was saying something the other day. I was like, I have a lot of conversations with, top tier educators, top tier like wedding filmmakers. And the amount of them that say, oh, I can't wait to get out of weddings. And I'm like, why are you educating people then? Like what a cynical viewpoint. Like you just like, literally, you're just like, your plan to stop doing something you hate is to force someone else to do something that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And it's like,
they're trying to replace themselves.
Yes. And that's the actual point versus, this is a great thing. I want to share it with someone. That's how I view weddings. It's like, I love shooting weddings. I want other people to do it. I am so appreciative of what weddings have done for my life and what a camera has done for my life and what this skill has done for my family. I want more people to have this skill because I think it can do that for them. I'm not like, Jared and I often are like, oh, I hate social media. I'm so tired. I don't want to do this. If I could work with students every day, Jared, I would love that.
Yeah.
Like, but it's not a thing in the States.
No.
Unfortunately, like, so I think your opportunity over there is really special. And that's why I was like, oh, I'm actually super jealous of Kay because what he's able to do because of the need and because of like the appetite is so amazing.
I'm glad you made that distinction, Kay, between influencers and kind of creators, right? When we were in Tokyo, and again, no offense to the people that were there, but we talking about it, we're like, we shot a lot of really good B-roll. I liked a lot of what we got there, but I feel like I'm probably more of like a creator than like an influencer, really. Like
we're really terrible influencers.
We came in as like, we're creators. We came into wedding film school like, hey, I think we have something to offer, but we're not like the personalities that really like hop off the page and explode and like just talk about gear, and it's like people are interested in what we have to say about gear. We're kind of like people that are just doing it and want to be good at what we're doing. But I was shocked at like kind of the lack of quality of like B-roll. I was like, hey, I think what we shot was like really good compared to a lot of other people. And I saw your film that you did from Tokyo, and I was like, his is really good too. He seems like he's very much like a creator, someone who's an educator, who knows what he's doing, who creates really beautiful stuff. So I think that comparison is interesting.
That's a great point. I want to ask you a question because of what you said. Do you think that the proliferation of and the cheapness of how easy it is to distribute media and is really trickling down to a poorer quality from people who start out shooting? Do you think people are just doing, because I don't know, that maybe is how I feel, but do you think that influencers are actually negatively affecting people's development as creators?
See, more than influencers, I think it's the story of an influencer that is, taking people down.
Yeah.
Where you see, look at it. I've been in this industry for 13 years. It took me 13 years to be where I am. I have been through ups and downs. I have destroyed my career multiples of times because of wrong decisions. I have lost a lot of money multiple times because of wrong decisions. And I am proud of talking about it because I don't want people to make the mistakes I did. But at the same time, you have these influencers who are coming on to their channels with a few 100,000 followers, and they talk about things like, "Hey, listen, I just picked up a phone and now started creating this amazing content. I'm getting this much of money from that content." What they don't talk about is the struggle behind creating that content. They also have failed. They also have been miserable. They've deleted all their stupid content that they have created. And that is the reason that a viewer who's coming on board to their channel to look at what they're doing does not really get the hang of what the mistakes can they make. And so that anybody who can afford an iPhone thinks that they are somebody who can create beautiful content because now they have a piece of equipment that does amazingly well. Why? Because an influencer was shooting with it and they were creating some amazing content. That influencer who's creating that content, what these people don't understand is there's a creator on the other side of that camera who's using that piece of equipment, creating that content for that influencer and not the influencer alone.
Yeah.
And that combined together, that skill set combined together is seen in people who are influencers and creators at the same time, and who are purely influencers and are dependent on creators to kind of bring their skill sets together to create amazing content. But the viewers don't look at it. And hence I get people who apply for jobs who have zero experience in what they're applying for. Like, for example, we do a lot of food shoots for big brands in India, and we are literally hiring people left, right, and center because we want to do this in 20 cities around India. I'm getting people who are coming up to me saying, "Listen, I create beautiful food reels and I can do this for you." I said, "Okay, sure." He's sending me videos that he's done because he's visited 10 different restaurants and he owns an iPhone, and he's sending me, "Listen," I said, "Listen, I can't offer this to my client. I can't have my client see you with an iPhone walking into a restaurant, creating a reel and coming back and saying, okay, the light is flickering. Why? Because I couldn't control it because I have a phone." Now, that technicality is what is lacking, and because of which the quality of content is really, really going down. Because of which what is biting these creators is that they don't have a solid portfolio. When they go out to get real business is business beyond what other creators are paying them to assist them in, or what pocket money they're making, is when they have a family to support, when they have bills to pay, when they have to go back and spend that money on buying more gear. That is when they realize, listen, we need to do bigger business. And when they start pitching bigger business, they realize, well, we don't have a good enough portfolio. So, and that all comes back to because they did not get into the learning side or skilling up side, I would say, of the content creation industry. They just jumped into it. They thought they have the right equipment to create whatever they could replicate looking at, and they were doing it. And because of which I feel that things are biting them back now.
Well, and also someone on the internet is not necessarily a mentor. You need an actual, you need an actual person. Jared and I, our business model, we did 220 weddings last year. We've worked with mostly young people, mostly like our current employee started with us when he's 17 and he's been shooting weddings. He's probably done hundreds of weddings at this point, right? I think a person needs 50 to 60 paid wedding gigs under their belt before they can ever really shoot a wedding. Like,
that's true.
And I think you could go out there and not do that. You could just get lucky, or maybe you're uniquely talented, all that stuff. But it's not the norm. And I think, like, I love free education. I like YouTube. I believe in all this stuff. But I will say it's not enough. Like, you have to go get your boots on the ground. You have to have someone who tells you. I heard a person the other day say, Jared, he was like, a real leader will criticize you, like, and they'll take it very seriously. They won't be sarcastic. They won't mock you. They're like, it's a gift to say, come up and be critical of you and actually help you and give you criticism. An influencer is not incentivized to be critical. An influencer needs to pump your tires 24/7 and keep you rolling and keep spending money on their stuff, clicks and all that stuff. And I think the lack of criticism and the lack of actual boots on the ground education is clipping people's wings, because they're going out there and they're like, I know great filmmakers in the States. It's a little different maybe, because people can have these really solid jobs and on the side work a side hustle, buy a really nice camera, produce pretty good cameras, produce pretty good content, but they can't run a business. So they have this great content, and then they go out there, they know nothing about marketing, they know nothing about, like, post-production, delivering on time, their storytelling is garbage, and then they release stuff, maybe they sell 20 weddings, and then they have no idea how to actually be critical or when to be alarmed about their business not going well. And, so I think, like, even though, like, you're in India and we're in the States, I think we're both kind of addressing and seeing some of the same issues with the lack of mentorship, lack of boots on the ground, lack of hands-on training. Because, like, I would be the last person to tell you should go to college for this. Like, you shouldn't do that. You should just go on a set for 3 years. That's how you should learn.
I mean, like, in India, one thing what we faced when I started off was we never got mentors. Because every senior we would approach, or every senior person we would go up to, would look at us like a competition, and they wouldn't give us the right direction. And that is the reason why in Shoot Guru, I made it a point that I reply to every single DM that comes on Instagram. I reply to every single email that comes through, and my team is there only to just prompt, listen, we've got a message, please go and talk to them. Because I don't want anybody else following up on queries or following up on, issues that people are facing in the industry. And rightly said, if I would have had a mentor, what took me 13 years to do, I would have achieved in 3 years. Because then I would have somebody to pull my ears. Listen, don't do this. You're doing this wrong. Take this path. And for the last 5 years, I've just been doing that. And I've realized that the lack of good mentors in our country, or even around the world, and more than that, the lack of accessibility to a mentor, where you do buy a program, that person says, okay, yes, now I am your mentor. But when you call him, when you email him, they rarely reply. And that is what is happening with a lot of, educators around the world. That has to change, because a mentor is supposed to be there when you fall down, when you're on your knees and you look up, that person has to be right there to answer all your things and pull you up and say, listen, just go on ahead. And this is what you're doing wrong, do this correctly. And that is what is really missing in whatever we're doing, be it wedding, be it commercial, be it fashion film, street for that matter. I feel it is missing literally everywhere.
Yeah. And what's funny, Jared, is, like, everyone who is successful, almost everyone has had that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Something I love about UK is I can tell you like to work really hard. And so I think we get along really well, because that's something that Jay and I have always been, like, really passionate about. And I think it's, like, in talking about influencers, I always think of influencers as, like, people just, they're like, oh, I'm working so hard, I had to post a video this week. You're like, oh, don't work too hard, man. But you're out there actually doing the work. You're talking about being in 40 cities, and, like, we're the same way. We're like, how can we expand, our business, Stop Go Love, make a kind of a bigger, company, and educate more people, like do wedding film school essentially for free at the same time. So I think there's a lot of parallels in what we're trying to do in the States and what you're trying to do over there in India. I think is really cool, really admirable because, you know, a lot of times it is, you know, a labor of love and you fail a lot of times. Like you mentioned, you know, we've kind of tried a lot of things and failed in a lot of things at the same time.
I failed every single day at so many things.
Yeah.
And, I think we'd be remiss, Jared, if we didn't bring up just some more of the spectacle of Indian weddings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this is in the States, and it's actually a big market in the States too. Like Indian weddings are big money.
Yeah.
Right. Because these are multi-day weddings. Now, given they want to negotiate every single part of the contract, but
That's true. I think an Indian would never let go of a good bargain.
yeah. But
I respect it, man.
oh, me too. But that being said, they're beautiful weddings.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we have a kind of an understanding a little in the States of like what goes into these weddings and the pomp and the circuit, all the crazy spectacle, right? Like, is it the norm? Because I mentioned before, like I've seen these Indian weddings and like they have these crazy amounts of cameras. Is like that, what percentage of weddings are having this big budget for creators and what percentage of them are just like, yeah, because in the States, the average wedding spend is like $1,500, maybe $3,000 for photo and video, right? They have one photographer and one video. That is 70 to 60% of weddings actually only 60% of weddings have video. Most weddings don't have, not most, but many do not. That's kind of the norm in our States. It's very downplayed in the States. Every time I see it in India, though, I've never seen an Indian wedding that doesn't have multiple, like you mentioned, 2 different teams for the bride and the groom. How do they even make a film?
Yeah.
So is that the norm or what's the industry like?
Okay. So things have changed over the years. And like post-COVID, things have really, really shrunken down. But at the same time, it really depends on what your budget is. I know filmmakers and photographers, so we have these websites where you can go on and you can see people's portfolios in terms of weddings, and you know, they have their pricing over there, and they tell you what they give in their package. So all the packages are really, really mentioned in there and stuff like that. So we have people who would do weddings, let's say starting about $1,000 for maybe one photographer, one videographer, but that would be in, I would say, very tier 3, tier 4 cities, and weddings of very small scale, you know, I mean, like ultra small scale. And these kids would be like, these people would be freelancers. They will not even give you post-processed anything. They would just shoot, hand over you maybe 100 edited images and maybe one small highlight capsule of the wedding, and that's pretty much it. But as you go up and up, and as you see these wedding filmers and photographers who have good portfolios, who are doing very well, these people apply for awards also. These people get awards also, and the more value is attached to any of them. Like first, if they're an influencer on social media, if they have a social media page with a few 100,000 followers, I mean, that's few 100,000 extra rupees for your wedding, straightforward. And then you have people who have won awards now because they're award winners. Then the bride and the groom come together. Okay, listen, we just want you, because they have their own rules and regulations about one team only and stuff like that. And that wedding would cost you about $3,000 easy. Like easy. The starting packages in India of a decent wedding with a decent wedding team is approximately $3,000 to $5,000, and that can go up to $20,000 to $40,000. I've seen it myself, and it's not even funny, where you know that the actual team shooting is just 2 filmmakers and 2 photographers, like 2 cinematographers and 2 photographers. Rest everybody is just showcase of the strength that a wedding team can bring with them. But at times when you're doing destination weddings, at times when you are going away with the families, then the families prefer, no, you reduce your wedding size, people size, only the primary photographer and the cinematographer will join in. Maybe one producer comes on board just to manage the family and stuff like that. And they would still get that much amount of money because they're known for what they do and what they're doing. So it's a very, very huge variation. in India, the thing is with freelancers, there is no set rate, right? I can, I have a network of about 40,000 creators pan India. You ask me tomorrow that you guys are coming to Mumbai and you both are the key photographer and cinematographer, or key, like key shooters for your team, and you just want two more people attached to you. We have the power to offer you people who would join you at about $100 a day to $50 a day to $20 a day. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's
as
like
low as $20 a day, where you're just paying the travel, to about $100 a day, where somebody who's getting a nice latest camera and a few lenses of his own and everything would come to you in about $100. And that goes up to about $200 for somebody who's experienced. Believe me, people with five years of experience come to you for about $200 to $300 a day. And that's how the industry is running in India, and that's the reason why the people who can make clients, can market, like Jay, you rightly said, people who know how to market what they're doing, who know how to run businesses, are the people who are running the show in the wedding industry, and everybody else is just hanging on to them. And the reason why anybody else is not really popping up is because if I assist you tomorrow, now that is your client. You wouldn't want me to post that content on my social media saying it's my work, because in the end, it's your brand's work. And that is why 90% of the newcomers who've been maybe working for 3 years in the industry don't have a portfolio. Why? Because they've been working for everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same in the States. I would say maybe a little bit more people might just start their own thing, maybe, because they might have another. Actually, here's a question. How many of those people, that's their primary form of employment, and how many of them are using it as a side hustle? Do you think like most of the filmmakers are full-time, or most are kind of hustling?
I would say it's a 50-50.
Interesting.
But the 50 who are hustling as a side hustle are converting after a few years. They're leaving their corporate jobs. They're leaving. I know people who are still working in corporates. Weddings is a hobby. They do weddings only on. They pick up weddings which are destination weddings only on weekends. They have won awards. They are doing beautiful work. And some of them are really, really close friends of mine who are doing amazing work. I love what they do, but it's not their primary business. And that is one reason where they are able to say no to a client. If a client says, listen, I want a discount, they say no. And because they're able to say no, the value increases.
Yeah.
As a freelancer, if this was my bread and butter, the biggest fear I have is, because it's a big competitive market, if I say no now to a discount of maybe $200, that person would go to somebody else who's doing it at a discount of maybe $100, and I would lose my business. And these people who do not have that fear are able to say no, where else I'm not. And that is the reason I see wedding creators working 24/7 during season, and still they don't have money in their bank accounts, because they end up overspending, or they end up overpromising people, and they're working hard, but they're not working smart.
Yeah.
And that has happened to a lot of people.
I think it's so interesting. It's such an interesting, take on weddings. It's a very interesting market. We just had someone the other day reach out on our Facebook group, on the Wedding Film School Facebook group, and they said, hey, I have a referral for a wedding that's happening in India. Their budget is $17,000. It was just kind of a little bit too cheap for us. So I want to pass it on to someone else who's maybe in that, budget. And all of these people in the comments, tons of comments, like $17,000, and that's, not enough money for you. Like, I think a lot of Westerners just don't understand what goes into an Indian wedding and what's kind of expected over there. Like in this case, it was probably like a 5-day shoot, a 4-day shoot, multiple people. And, they were just kind of blown away. Exactly kind of what you're saying is like, hey, that really experienced filmmaker was like, yeah, $17,000. It's not what we could do. We'd be breaking even on it. And it just blew people's minds.
Yeah, people, this is in the States, one of the biggest things that educators do is they say this. They say like, I'm going to show you how to book $10,000 weddings. I just booked this $10,000 wedding. And I always say, how many days did you have to shoot? That's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's like your day. What's your day rate?
Yeah. And what's happening in India now. And I feel that, it kind of gives me a business opportunity off the record with you guys is if I announce tomorrow that Shoot Guru is getting into weddings and the wedding film school is collaborating with us. And if you guys are looking out for international style weddings with international wedding shooters, do hook us up. Believe me, the minimum ticket size that we would be offering to people is $20,000. That's a minimum. Why? Because I would have you guys as the poster boys for my posters everywhere and say, listen, I'm getting international shooters to shoot with me. What do you want?
Yep.
And that sells. And that sells. That is the reason we have international DOPs in Bollywood. That is the reason we have international choreographers in Bollywood. And that is the reason why we have so many dancers in the background of Bollywood music videos, which are foreigners. Because that is what is selling.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And believe me, an Indian family who would not spend even a rupee on me wouldn't mind giving you $1,000. Why? Because then when they in front of their family, extended family, they would say, listen, these two guys, they especially come for us from the USA. And that term, that headline of having that show off, especially in the north in India, we were mint money with this.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Let's do it. Let's make some money.
So the question for you, because again, I think just us in the U.S., us Westerners, we really don't even grasp the idea of like what it takes to make this kind of product, to make kind of a Hindu wedding, what goes into it. What would you say that most Westerners kind of miss about creating an Indian wedding film, whether it be culturally, like help us kind of understand a little bit more of like what we miss in general when we're trying to produce something?
I don't think that like with how the trend is happening now, like one of my favorite directors right now is a girl named Dargai. She is from Ukraine and she is somebody who does music videos for literally some of the best Indian artists that are there. And the way she produces Bollywood is mind-blowing. So what I feel that you coming from where you are now with the current trend in the market, you won't miss on anything. Believe me. With the kind of storytelling that you guys do, with the kind of the shots that you guys take, the only thing that we have to be very careful about in Indian weddings is relationships. That every relationship is taken care of and they're touched upon somewhere in that wedding film, because then they don't have an option of saying, listen, you didn't cover this uncle or this aunt or whatever. But then we have backups for that. That is the reason we have this candid cinematographer and a traditional videographer. So a traditional videographer is always rolling his camera. He does this, very mainstream tripodish camera style film that runs for about 30-40 minutes, where people can, watch later. The old people in the families can watch later and say, oh, listen, this uncle also came, this aunt also came. But then the younger kids, the bride and the groom themselves want those cinematic highlights, want themselves to look like celebrities. So if you can make the bride and groom look beautiful, make them look like celebrities, make them feel special on that wedding, you'll sell. You have to be part of the family. With us, you can't be an outsider. With us, you can't be somebody who is, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and just, saying hello, hi, how are you? And not even maybe, like you said, in American wedding, it's you have to be seen but not heard. Here, you have to be heard.
Yeah.
You have to be there. You have to be part of their celebration. You have to engage with the families and tell them, listen, I'm here. I'm part of your family. And let's celebrate it together. I'm so happy with you. So let's say you come here. I would get you guys into traditional like sherwanis for a wedding and not have you guys in like in suits or even T-shirts for that matter. I would want you guys to be in the ethnic like the theme of that day, because every day in an Indian wedding has a theme. It has a color. And I was surprised to see that in my sister's wedding, because the teams that I hired, I did not expect them to do this. But on the day when the theme was orange, everybody wore orange. On the day when the theme was blue, everybody wore blue. And that is when I realized that was the reason when when I had initiated my talks with these creators that, okay, I'm doing a wedding, the first question that the senior guys of that team asked me was, okay, just send us the days and the themes that you guys are having and we'll manage. And this is the reason they were doing it. Because then they're not outsiders, then they're part of the family, then they're celebrating. If somebody comes to you and they want to put saffron on your forehead to give you blessings, and you bow down and you let them do it. And that culture is what I feel would be very easy for Westerners to pick up, for one simple reason: we're not shy. We don't like Indian culture is a lot more. They step back a little bit when it comes to involving outsiders, but I feel now it's changing. Everybody wants to be part of the celebration. Everybody wants to be you to be part of the family. And I know creators who did a wedding 5 years ago, and for the last 5 years they have been constantly working for the same family. They have been recommended for literally everything. When the kids are born, for their birthdays, when the brothers and the sisters are getting married, for their weddings, and it's multiple business. From a family, it's not that just first $20,000 is the $200,000 that you would make over the next 2 years. So that is the kind of focus is what is needed here in terms of doing business with Indian families.
So it's all about. Because in the States, it's all about, first of all, I think this is true in both in the States and in India. You got to show off what they're showing off, right? Like whatever it is that they think is cool, you got to show in your film because that's why they spent money on it. But I think the other side is just much more so the idea that the family is the wedding, not just the couple, right? In American wedding films, it's all about this is these two people's love story and journey. And I feel like when I see, and I've seen this a lot internationally, like America, we have a little bit of an issue with families right now, I'll say. But in the States, or I mean, in India, it's like this is a story of a family. And I think if you can tell that story, that's why when you hop on if you've never negotiated with an Indian dad, when you are booking that wedding, every so often you're talking directly to the couple, but often you're negotiating with the family. That is...
Yeah. And in India, it's exactly like that. I mean, the couple would like your work. They would introduce you to their family. All the negotiations are done by the father. And that's how it's done. And not only the father, the uncle sits with them. The person who's the best negotiator in the family sits with them, and then you have this panel of people sitting in front of you saying, listen, we need a discount, or we need this thing extra, or what can you give more, or how can we own you? So it's just that you have to deal with a lot of that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Man, it's been so fascinating, super interesting.
Very enlightening. Yeah.
If you're like a filmmaker, listening to this, I mean, obviously you as a filmmaker, maybe you can't apply all that stuff because you're shooting not these types of weddings, but you should want to know, right? I think if you're a filmmaker wanting to understand other people, that's what a storyteller is. So I love getting to explore other people's cultures and their families and what is exciting to them, because I think love is a constant and families are a constant. And there's something like that one culture might do that is very highlighted, but it's still in the other cultures. Like human beings are all the travel I've done around the world. I remember meeting you guys, and I forget the other gentleman who was with us at the time. We were at
Jesse.
Yeah, we were talking, and I was like, these people, we get each other. I was like, this is and I've had that experience all around the world with people from all different cultures. I remember playing Risk with a bunch of guys in the Philippines, and they're like sitting there and we're playing Risk, and they're just, not to be gross, but they keep eating some durian fruit behind our back, and then they would just blow it in your face across the table, which is not good smelling.
Just screwing with each other.
Yeah, it's just like people are people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I love about it is like you can see that we have more in common than we have as differences, and you can learn a lot and maybe get outside of your context like, because there are things like in our industry that we just get locked into. Whatever it is, in India too, whatever you're in, you get locked into that mode of being, and it's hard to get out. So I wanted to have you on because you give fresh perspective, and I think a lot of what you're saying is universally true, but it's just more emphasized over there, and I think we can apply a lot. So I thought that was really great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kay. Dude, such a pleasure talking. And
it's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
And you've got me thinking about so many new business ideas.
Oh, me too, man. I was gonna say
we should connect. Otherwise, you guys have to visit India.
Oh well, exactly. I was thinking. I was like, man, what would be really cool for us to do would be a behind the scenes of an actual Indian wedding in India, because we have them in America, which I feel like it's just like we see a little insight into what a real Indian wedding in India is like. But actually being a part of that would be awesome. So we have to put something together, man.
That would be really
so
fun. Now, how can people get a hold of you? How do people find you on the interwebs and see what you're doing and check out what you guys are doing?
So I'm available on Instagram. That's @shootguru on Instagram, and of course on YouTube as well. Again, same handle @shootguru.
That's great. And of course, we have, I think some Indian audience. And so if you are listening to this and you've never really followed him, which I think would be kind of unlikely, but if you never looked into Kay, go check him out. I mean, I would highly recommend just getting involved with someone who's willing to actually put a camera in your hands and make you actually learn to do it correctly. And I think that's great. So thank you so much, Kay. If you have been listening to this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys.
If you've been listening to the show and you enjoyed it, like it. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, do all that stuff. But mainly, it just means a lot to us if you would just apply the information. Just take it, put it in your life, and make better films, guys. Have a great day.